What is a data structure? It is a way of storing and organizing data. Data can be interacted with. You can perform operations on the data. Some examples of data structures would be lists. These are data structures. A table. This is also a data structure. And in Cobol, an array is a table. So let's have a look at tables. And what we have here are the headers and the rows. And you'll notice that the headers are called fields and the rows are called records. And within the intersection is a piece of information called a datum. So a single piece of data. We can also look at a field, a special field called a primary key. So this is a way of uniquely identifying a record. The whole thing is called a table, and in Cobol this is called a file, and there is different types of file. So you've got the physical record, like I should say record. You've got a physical record, or you could say like a physical file. This is where it's actually stored. You know, so on your hard drive or on a hard drive somewhere, encoded into that hard drive is the record, the information that can be retrieved for the record. The logical record is the information used by the program. Incidentally, Cobol can handle one logical record at a time, so not too fantastic. And we have to remember that as a limitation. If we now look at a structure briefly, now here we've got the variables, and these variables should be familiar to you by now if you've been following along. And it's a very simple program. And here it's being initialized. I haven't done anything too fancy. It's moved 1 to number, moved Tony to first name, moved McDonald to last name. And then in here, this string is the first name, and it's being delimited by a space. And a space up here is a space is just a space, quite literally a space. And then you've got the last name. And then that's being put into full name. Now, if I run this, first of all, let's initialize it, and then we're going to run, and you'll see that what it does is give 01 Tony McDonald. Now that's what that delimitate by space is about, because what I've done is I've given full name 50, I've given first name 23, and I've given last name 23. So if I wasn't to do that, if I just take this out, then what happens is we've got we have the space here. Now why is it spaced out like this? Well, it's spaced out like this because this is the number, and I gave it 2 characters. I gave this one 23, and I also gave this one 23. So that's why it does that. So if I put the delimiter back in there, then it displays it the way that I want to. But I showed you the other one, this one up here, because I want you to realize that we can make a table out of this, can't we? You know, it would be much more useful if it was a table. And a table has a name, right? So if I go back to here, this slide here, the table file, that could be a name. How do we store all of this and give that table a name, or maybe even just make a row? So what could I do? Well, it turns out that what we can do is this. Now note the difference here. Full name was a variable. Now full name is just like a key. And these are the values that it unlocks. And it's indented, and we've got 05. Now these, they still keep the picture, the nominating how many spaces or how much memory, how many bytes each one of these has, and it's going to be, you could think of it as how many characters. Yeah. So when I run this one, if I clear this, and now I make sure this is initialized, and then I run it. Now when I run this one, it does exactly the same thing. It prints 1, Tony, and McDonald. It doesn't print 01 because what I've done is I've put a Z in there. That's all. I put a Z in that bit there, and these I've shortened. But that's it. Now I've got, like, you know, space that's been put in there, and a space that's in there as well. So this name here, that's all I'm calling. That's all I'm calling down here, and it calls this, and it's like, hey, you know this variable? I want you to, and here's the keyword, display everything that's in it. And that's what it does. It gives us the value, and it makes sure that there's a space between the values. So it's basically like a record. Here's what we got so far. So we have the name of the table, which is full name, and then it's got some headers, which is what the 05 variables are about. Now, the way that I've put it together isn't particularly helpful at the moment. So we're going to change it and make it look a little bit neater and tidier, so you can see what's going on. We can see that this column header here, that's not really needed, is it? You know, it doesn't really fit in very well. So we can change that to a filler, what's called a filler. So we have the keyword filler. It's treated just the same, so it has like picture X and value there. We're just going to leave that as spaces. And now if we do this, I've done this because we're not moving anything into these into this variable here. The others are being used. One's being moved in there, Tony's being used in there, and McDonald's being used in there, but like, this one, it's not being used, so we can just change that to filler. That means that we can just keep on using filler, and then we denote what that filler is going to be each time. And now we run the program, and you'll see that it works exactly the same way. Now, to show you a little bit more what filler can do, let's say I put it in here, and we make this value name, just to make it even like more awkward. Right. Now, you see it's still filler and filler. Now, if I run it, it's the size because this hasn't got enough space in it, has it? So if I give that, let's just 8 will do. And now it works. And so I run the program, and there it is. So we have 1, and then it's got name, and then it's got Tony and McDonald. Now that's kind of misleading, really, because we can give each one of these headers like some values to go in that column. We'll look at that in a little while. But at the moment, the idea is to get your head around the fact that we can create this variable that has these other variables stored within it. I've changed the code a little bit. So in this table here, I've changed it to table names. So you've got a clearer idea of what's going on here. And then we've got here, this is a column header, really. And it's going to show up in a line as a row, just to make things more complicated. And then we've got like the space, the filler, and then we've got like a column header. And this column header contains 2 variables. So column header doesn't have a picture or a value there. And it has first name and it's got last name. And so if we run this, we get the predicted value, which is the one we've been getting all along. Now, if I go down to here and I put add 1 to the number, and then if I just copy this, pop that down there, and I change this name to, let's change it to, to Fred, and last name Goldfish. Right, now if I save it, I've got to compile and then run. It then runs and it just prints them out. So we've got table of names that doesn't show up, and we've got the column header that doesn't show up either. And these actually are the items within something. The next thing I want to look at is this keyword occurs. Now you notice that I've taken the table and I've shortened it down a little bit, and just so you can see what's going on, we've got occurs. So what I've done is I've taken this column header, it doesn't have picture or anything, and it's got occurs 25 times. And I've removed the number and that, so it's just going to take this variable here and these items in it, it's going to print out 25 times. So we just have a little look at that. And there it is. It prints it out 25 times. Level 77. If we look at what's in the working storage, we can see this bunch of variables. Now we've got the first two, and we've got the one we've just been looking at, which is a name for a whole list of variables. What's the 77 about? So if I put the extra displays in down here. If I put the extra displays in, and one, and we put, so we've got variable one, var one, and this one is going to be var two. We save that. We do the compile. We do the run. And there it prints out 25 times. And then at the bottom, you've got tiger and you've got olive, which is what we expect. So what's the 77 about? Well, the 77 can denote these variables that are not a structure. Okay, so now if I run it, in fact, let's do clear. Right. Now if I run it, it still does the same thing. And it's easier for us to read here because we can see 77 not a structure, 77 not a structure, 01 is a structure. What happens if I turn this into 77? I haven't tried this, so I don't know what it's going to do. But I'm told that you can't have 77 as a structure. It's got to be 01. So let's go over to here. Let's do clear. And now we do, yeah, and it comes up with the error. So we zoom in over here. We've got the error. 13 level number must begin with 1 or 77. Well, it does. It does begin with 77. So let's have a look over here. We've got 13. You see, these ones here, it doesn't like the way that they're being organized. It's taking this and it's like, hey, what are these then? Because this should be a non-structure. And that's what's going on over there. So that's what the 77 is. We'll put it back to 01, do the save. Do the yep, and it saves it okay, and then we do run, and it runs as we expected. So that's what the 77 is about. In the next video, I'm going to look more at tables, and we're going to start thinking about the tables as fields, as I mentioned in the video, in the beginning of the video. And that's going to be, a lot more useful. And I'll go a bit more into the tables and which parts of the code are referring to what part of the table. But for now, that's it. Goodbye. I'll see you in the next video. Leave a comment, give a like, share this with your friends. That would be great. See ya.